I'm about to pull him up. And here we go. Well, welcome back, guys, to our study on As a Man Thinketh. And we are, we're just trucking right along right here, right? We've been moving through this at a pretty good clip. We went through thought and purpose, and now we're digging into the chapter on the thought factor in achievement. And I tell you, I love that title, right? The thought factor in achievement. Like, what factor does thought have on achievement? And it just right on the first sentence of this chapter right here, one of my favorite quotes, and I like to quote it to myself all the time, but he says, until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. There is no intelligent accomplishment. And when you have intelligent accomplishment, then you certainly have achievement. And that's what we're talking about here today, right? So let's just, we're jumping out of the weeds and we're digging right into the meat today. So let's just jump straight in. This is chapter 5. And I tell you guys, sure enough, some good stuff here today. All right. So this is the quote kicking us off right here. All that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is the direct result of his own thoughts. See, when he says all that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is the direct result of his thoughts. And I'd say, I don't think anybody starts out thinking that they want to fail, right? But we talk ourselves out of it. You think about it. We all do this. We talk ourselves out of it. We talk ourselves out of achievement, like boom, like that, right? I mean, that quick. And I think about this. I just wish, I love ideas, right? I love dreams and those kind of things, but I really do. I wish that I had a stopwatch, right? I had me a stopwatch and I could just be there when somebody has the boop, the dream come in, and I could just click, right? As soon as the dream comes in, hit that start button. I bet it's like that, just 1.5 seconds, right? And it's gone. And I think we say this, well, that's not going to work, right? Or no, not going to work for me because, and then we give all these becauses, because, right? And they've talked themselves out of it so quick because of all these becauses. And they're like, we won't say it won't work because fill in the blank, right? So he says here in the book, all that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is the direct result of his thoughts. And here's what we tend to do, right? We tend to, what we tend to do is we tend to say, you know what? He or she talked me out of it, right? He or she talked me out of it. And no, guys, nobody can talk you in or out of anything. You have to make agreement. You have to give permission. You have to surrender your own empowerment, right? Now let's go on. He says, in a justly ordered universe where laws of equipoise would mean total destruction, individual responsibility must be absolute. And I just want to pause right there. I think it was Scott in our group right here talks about, some of these words you have to look up. And then when you look up there, the definition to the word, they've got a word in there that you've got to look up. And equipoise, right? That's that balance. That's that balance. So I'll read it again. In a justly ordered universe where loss of equipoise would mean total destruction, individual responsibility must be absolute. It must be absolute. Character, absolute. Attitude, absolute. He says responsibility must be absolute. And so many people, I think, instead of accepting responsibility in today's world, are really, they're programmed to find fault and blame. It's not my fault, right? It's his fault. Think of all the things that we blame on, other people, maybe our coworkers or even the government. I mean, we blame the government for different things. And I think, I think that's really, I don't want to go into politics or anything like that, but I think that's what's given rise to some of the issues that we've seen today. We're looking to blame and find fault in someone. And before we start blaming and finding fault, we have to really start taking absolute responsibility for what's going on in our little slice of the world, right? In our little slice of the world, and stop blaming other people. And he says, this is what he says in the book, a man's weakness and strength, purity and impurity are his own and not another man's. They are brought about by himself and not by another. And they can, and this is just so powerful, they can only be altered by himself, never another, right? And friends, this is a you and you deal, right? It's a you and you deal. And then any of you who've kind of listened to any of my other trainings for long enough, you've heard my little riff on being responsible to and being responsible for, right? I'll do a leadership training. I'll say things that, I'll say we're responsible to those that we lead for three things. We're responsible to the people we lead for three things. And that's to value them, to expect the best out of them, and to give them an opportunity to move from where they currently are to where they have the potential to be. But we're not responsible for the decisions they make, right? In this particular training, in what we're doing, I'm responsible to you to be prepared and to give you my very best and give relevant teaching that you can apply. But I'm not responsible for your decision to apply or not to apply, right? So it's really a you and you deal. And there are plenty of people who have applied the principles that we're talking about in this book and that we've been talking about, and they've achieved great results. But I've done other trainings and I've been part of other trainings, and people will say things like, well, the training didn't work. The program didn't work. The program just didn't work for me, right? Well, the program was designed for you to work, right? The program works, but it's not going to work on its own, right? It's a you and you deal. It's a me and me deal. And this is one of those things where you've got to be, when you really accept responsibility for you. I have a family member that really frustrates me because this family member is super smart, super talented. Yet he blames everybody else. He blames the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? It's everybody else's fault outside of him. First, it's the unfair practices of the supervisors that were making him do too much, and the company didn't pay enough. And then, of course, it was the other employees that were terrible, and they didn't work hard enough. They all had bad attitudes. It was everybody else. And it's like, there's not enough hours in the day, so it's the son's fault, right? And so he says in the book, his condition is also his own and not another man. His suffering and his happiness are evolved from where? Within, right? As he thinks, so he is. As he continues to think, so he remains. So that's good stuff. So let's go through it. Line 540, if you're following along in the book right there. For those of you that are on Facebook Live right here, part of the study, we have a PDF flipbook version that's got line numbers through there, so you can kind of keep up. But we're on line 540. He says, a strong man cannot help a weaker unless the weaker is willing to be helped. No one can do your homework for you, can they? Nobody can do the homework for you. You got to do it yourself, and we've all got to paddle our own canoe, right? Even then, he says, so the strong man cannot help a weaker unless the weaker is willing to be helped. And even then, the weak man must become strong of himself. He must by his own efforts develop the strength, which he admires in another, by himself, his conditions. You think about kids, right? Think about kids. We've got 3 kids, and I've mentioned, we love them, right? And it's very important, just in like almost every day, it seems like. Every day they want to go to Chuck E. Cheese or they want to go to the mall to play games when, we actually could do that when that stuff was open. But every day is like what it feels like every day. Can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? But I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese, right? And you see their little faces and they start crying, but we never get to do anything fun, right? We never have fun, and it's very tempting when you take them to Walmart or to Academy or whatever, they want to buy just one. Can I just have one little toy, right? But there's no growth in that, right? And that kind of responsibility really comes through in this chapter that we're studying, right? The responsibility for us to take it, to claim it. No one's going to do it for us, and we can't do it for others too, right? Even if we want to, even if we love them, they've got to do it for themselves. And so it comes from growth, and the growth comes from dealing with experiences and tackling those life experiences. And if you spoil people, you rob them from that opportunity to grow. But it's really from life experiences that gives us the opportunity to grow, and it's working things out for ourselves and dealing with things and overcoming problems. And I think that's so important now that, we've got to do it for ourselves, right? We got to do it for ourselves. No one can do it for us. And if they do, they've really robbed us of that growth, right? And it's so important. It really comes out in that. And I mean, that's how we develop self-reliance, right? I remember hearing a quote that goes something something like this. It's like, if the whole world needs to go to the psychiatrist in order for you to get better, right? But at what point do you and do I step up and take responsibility for ourselves, right? But when we fail to take responsibility, he says on line 545 right here, it has been usual for men to think and say, many men are slaves because one is an oppressor. Let us hate the oppressor. Now, however, there's among an increasing few a tendency to reverse this judging and to say one man is an oppressor because many are slaves. Let us despise this oppressor. The truth is, the oppressor and the slaves are cooperators in the ignorance of that, and while seeming to afflict each other, are in reality afflicting themselves. And woo, that's a powerful quote right there, right? And the rise of this fault and blame, the rise of this where nothing is our responsibility, is given a rise to a lot of hate, but really, and so think about it, right? Think about this. I don't really think there's such thing as fair, right? Think about that. Hang tight with me, right? If there's such thing as fair, then who's the arbitrator of fair? Who's the judge of fairness? I think it should be me, right? What do you guys think? What do you think? And you would probably say, well, hold on a second. I think that should be me. And I say, I don't know about that. That's not fair, right? I think it should be me. I'll arbitrate what's fair and when's fair. I mean, there's no such thing as fair. What there is, though, there is lawful. And he says right here in the next line, a perfect knowledge perceives the action of what? Of a law. In the weakness of the oppressed and the misapplied power of the oppressor, a perfect love, seeing through the suffering which both states entail, condemns neither. A perfect compassion embraces both oppressor and oppressed. Who has conquered weakness and who has put away all selfish thoughts belongs neither to the oppressor or to the oppressed. He's free. A man can only rise, conquer, and achieve. Man, that's good, y'all. That is so good, so effective. He can only rise, conquer, and achieve. He says here, what? It's a perfect knowledge, a perfect love, a perfect compassion. He can only rise, conquer, and achieve by lifting up his thoughts. He can only remain weak and abject and miserable by refusing to lift up his thoughts, and taking responsibility. Man, that is good. So if you go back, for any of you guys that have been doing the study with us here, if you go back to that 7 levels of character that my mentors, Paul Martinelli and Roddy Galbraith, put together for us there, and we did that lesson, right? But if you go back and kind of part 2 of that briefly here, he says, before man can achieve anything, even in worldly things, he must lift up his thoughts above the slavish animal indulgence. And we don't need to give up everything, though, right? We don't have to give up everything. We just need to work on some parts, right? We don't need to get, some of us have, I speak for myself, and I'm sure, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure you do as well. But, I've got some bad habits, right? I've got some bad habits that at this point, I'm not really ready to give up yet, right? I'm kind of enjoying them, and they're not that bad, right? They're not that bad, and then they're not harmful, right? They're not getting in the way of other things that I want to achieve, so I'll just kind of come back to them, right? And I'll work on those later, right? So we don't need to be perfect in order to move forward, in order to grow. So we don't need to give up all things and everything by any means, but a portion of it must at least be sacrificed, right? So let's keep trucking. Line 575 here. He says, there can be no progress, no achievement without sacrifice. And a man's worldly success will be in the measure that he sacrifices his confused animal thoughts and fixes his mind on the development of his plans and the strengthening of his resolution to self-reliance. So let's just take this, right? Let's just take this. He says, there can be no progress and no achievement without sacrifice, and a man's worldly success will be in the measure that he sacrifices. Sacrifices what? What, he says? His confused animal thoughts, right? It's interesting. He says, sacrifices confused animal thoughts. And I think what he's talking about here is this law of sacrifice. And so when we understand sacrifice, most of us would think, most of us are thinking that it's, I'm going to sacrifice ice cream for kale chips, right? Or you sacrifice TV time for gym time. It's about letting go of something. So the law of sacrifice, as I teach it in my leadership trainings, I have defined it as teaching it. The law of sacrifice is the willingness to let go of things of lesser value for the attainment of things of a greater value, right? It's the willingness to let go of the things that have a lesser value for the things of a higher value. So you have to be willing to let go here of the confused animal thoughts. You have to be willing to fix your mind on the development of your plans and then straight to meet resolution of self-reliance, right? But you only do and have that willingness once you've defined in your life what is of higher value, because you would ever really get the willingness, like I said, I've got some bad habits, right? And quite frankly, I want to hold on to them some, right? But I say in that I'm never going to change those because there's no willingness, right? Of course not, because I haven't defined them as a greater value to work on, right? But the moment that I define that, because there have to be some bad habits that I have said to, there are some bad habits that I've said, hey, absolutely, that's it. I draw the line in the sand and that's it. I've stopped, because they're stopping me from being who I want to be and who I know God is calling me to be. These have got to go, right? I have defined what's of a higher value. So they've got to go. That's it. They're done. And so you define those things of a lesser value in order to attain something of what you've defined as a greater value. And again, how can you ever define something of a lesser value or define anything of a higher value if you don't take responsibility for you, right? You can't be blaming other people, but then define for yourself what's of higher value. If you surrender away your personal power, either you've got it or you don't have it, right? And you've got it and it's yours, and you do get to define in your life what is of lesser value and what is of higher value, but you never get to that place, right? You never get to that place of being able to define that and have the willingness to do what you've got to do, to take responsibility. You never reach levels of achievement without sacrifice, right? There will be no progress without sacrifice. There will be no sacrifice. You never get to that place of sacrifice, of defining and willingness if you're playing the playing game, right? You never get there, right? If you're playing that. So let's drop on down line 583, because I think this ties into this. Line 583, the universe does not favor the greedy, the dishonest, the vicious, although on the mirror surface, it may sometimes, and sometimes it does, right? It sometimes looks like that. And he says, although on the mirror surface, it may sometimes appear to do. But what it does is it helps the honest, the magnanimous, the virtuous. All the great teachers of all the ages have declared this in various form. And to prove and to know, there has got to persist in making himself more and more virtuous by lifting up his thoughts. And I think, what we have to understand is when he says there that the universe does not favor the greedy, the dishonest, or the vicious, it can't, right? It can't, because when one is greedy, when one is dishonest, when one is vicious, there are things, all those are things of constriction, right? Those are constriction. If we understand anything about law, if we know anything about the universe, it's an ever becoming continual pool of expression, right? I was studying the other day, and I forget the program we were in, but they were talking about the Hubble telescope, saying, get this, right? This Hubble telescope is now identified, you just wrap your mind around this, that there very well could be more galaxies than there are grains of sand, right? Think about that. That's a lot of sand, right? There's a lot of sand, right? And so remember, we're working with law, and you're working with law, and when God spoke, and stars burst into the sky, and there was a moon and some planets. And when he said, be fruitful and multiply, he created us and all creation for fuller expression and fuller expansion. So there's no way greedy. There's no way dishonesty. There's no way viciousness stands. It can't. We know how the story ends, right? The good guys win. And he says this, right? I know sometimes it doesn't seem like that, but look, the truth isn't always in the appearance of things, okay, guys? The truth isn't always in the appearance of things, right? So sometimes it appears that evil is triumphing, and it appears that way, but power trumps force in the end. Over time, how things play out, the good guys win, y'all. The good guys win. I mean, I believe that. And so let's jump on down to 603. Achievement of whatever kind is the crown of effort. And just like that, achievement of whatever kind. So whatever we're going to do, whatever we've got to work on, we've got to claim it. We've got to invest some time and some energy. We've got to try, and probably we've got to try, over and over and over again, right? We'll do our best, and our best may not be good enough yet. But if we keep trying, we'll grow, and eventually our best will become good enough. This is what he says. All achievement, whether in business, intellectual, or spiritual world, are the results of definitely directed thought, are governed by the same law and on the same method. The only difference lies in the object of their attainment. So, I already said that we've got 3 kids, but our kids love watching these shows on Earth and about animals and those kind of things. And it's kind of amazing, at what they can capture sometimes with these videos. I mean, it's amazing what they can capture. But a good while back, we were watching one of these, and for some reason, this one just really stood out to me. But they were talking about this high-speed train, and I think it's like Japan, right? I think it's like the bullet train or something like that. But what it was happening was this high-speed train, it would come out of this tunnel, and it was going so fast. As it comes out of this tunnel, it would create this sonic boom. And there's this wave of air that just kind of gets built up in front of the train. And then as it comes out, it just boom, it breaks through, right? And it kind of explodes. And it was terrible, right? So loud for the passenger. It was just, terrible for them, terrible for the wildlife. So what they did was, they thought that what they would do is they found this little bird that just dives into the water. And so they built on the front end of the train a bird beak, right? A bird beak. It is a bird beak design. And they studied this bird beak, and I see that. And then I'm reminded, like 2 days before, they showed, if you've ever seen how they show it from, Earth, they show Earth from way up high, and they've got all these views. And so they go over different places of the Earth where there's traffic, and they show how the very best organized traffic is kind of in the shape of a clover leaf, and basically what they're showing here, and where I'm trying to get at with this point right here is how often do we take things from nature and solve our problems? I mean, I just find it kind of interesting. I think that's very interesting. And so he says, all achievement, whether in business, intellectual, or spiritual work, are the result of definitely directed thought, are governed by the same law and the same method. The only difference lies in the object of their attainment. And he who would accomplish little must sacrifice little. He would achieve much must sacrifice much. He who would attain highly must sacrifice greatly. And no matter where you are this is the point. No matter where you are is where you should be. And whether you're facing, whatever you're facing is exactly the right conditions and circumstances for you to grow, right? To the next level. And knowing and believing that allows you then to grow, right? No matter where you are, exactly where you're supposed to be. The exact conditions, exact circumstances were divinely created for those conditions and circumstances to be the curriculum of your growth, right? And that's our journey, right? That's our journey. My journey is going to be different from yours, and yours is going to be different from mine. And your curriculum for growth, to evolve, is going to be different from mine. You're right. It's going to be different from mine. And so why don't, I think the point here is, I've got a video out on YouTube. It says, don't should on somebody, right? Don't should on other people. You should do this. You should do that. Don't should on people, right? Let them have their own journey, right? Don't rob them of that either. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a bug on its back, I've heard the saying, the best thing you can do for a bug that's on his back, don't squish him or don't turn him over, just leave him, right? Just leave him. And I'll kind of let you guys sit in on that one for just a second as we wrap it up right there. So in our closing, we're going to close it with our quote from the chapter on vision and ideas. And hey guys, that's our next lesson that'll be coming out on vision and ideals. So this is our ending quote each session. So the vision that you glorify in your mind, the ideal that you enthrone in your heart, this you will build your life by, and this you will become. Guys, I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson. I hope this has added value to you. Those on Facebook Live, Hey, I hope this has added value to you. If it has, feel free to comment, go to the link to find out more. We'd love to have you in the study. It's a self-guided study. And if you have any interest in legacy builders, these are some of the things that we do. We dive in deep to certain books each month. In this book we're on, As a Man Thinketh, and it shapes our theme for the month. And this month, all about mindset. Guys, I hope you guys have a great day, and God bless. Thank you, guys.